Disdain in London from the Esmeralda King series of books by Kathryn Louise. Chapter 5, A Family Affair. Even though I had been living on my own for a few years, in recent months I had become accustomed to sleeping cuddled up close to Samuel. His snoring certainly kept me awake, but there was something about dozing off in the safe and comforting arms of a man. Without him by my side, I would frequently wake during the night. This morning was no different. Slowly opening my eyes to the sun beaming through the blinds, I turned my head to see his handsome, sleeping face. The dark silk sheets glided over my semi-naked body as I rolled over to be closer to him. Samuel gently stirred. He must have got home in the early hours of the morning and joined me in bed without waking. He wrapped his strong, heavy arms around my body, brushing his morning, stubble face against me without even opening his eyes. I could hear his heavy breathing in my ear. This was the time when I lay in bed and allowed my mind to just wander, playing out certain situations or scenarios in my head to help it piece cases together. What if? I wonder. Did she? They were useless thoughts a lot of the time, but sometimes, just sometimes, I would think of an important detail or a piece of the puzzle that I was yet to pull together. The same happened frequently in the shower, the times of the day where I had a few minutes of my hectic schedule just to organize everything. What questions did I need to ask Jenny? How could I make sure I was sympathetic to her, but gain all the information I needed? How much could I tell her about Cordelia and Andrew in the weeks before he'd killed himself? There was no putting it off. I had to get up and leave, and I could have spent the whole day cuddled up with Samuel instead. I have to get up, I whispered gently, trying to remove myself from his warm cocoon. I've got things I need to get done today. He gave me the most affectionate of kisses before letting me go. I didn't do mornings, but I needed to get some answers, and visiting Jenny that morning was the only way I was going to achieve it. I had also made a promise after our last discussion that once this case was finished, I would help Samuel with the family business rather than endanger myself in another case. That meant I was under pressure to get to the truth and get the hell out before things became more complicated than they currently were. I felt a jeans and dress trainers kind of a day, a plain white smart t-shirt and a fitted jacket that made me look like I had a small amount of effort. To accessorize, I grabbed a small handbag from the closet that matched the detail in my trainers and tied a ribbon around the hairband in my neat ponytail. A quick squirt of perfume just to make the smell that little bit more exquisite, rubbing both my wrists together. Any form of makeup would be applied in the car just before I got out to meet Jenny. It felt like a waste to apply anything before I left and then have to touch it up again before meeting anyone. I made myself a quick cup of coffee and poured it into my travel flask, placing it gently into the car cup holder for convenience. One of my more normal meetings, interviewing one person in a mess of a situation, so I could figure out what on earth has happened to Andrew Farraday and why he has been so fascinated with Cordelia Jones and her daughter. The traffic peaked and troughed, but in less than 20 minutes I was turning into the road. Jenny had reluctantly agreed to meet me after Cordelia had given me her number. I dropped her a quick text whilst at Cinco Chicas. I had made a few false promises, saying it would help us solve what had led to him jumping, something I couldn't possibly promise, but if it meant her agreeing to see me, then I had nothing to lose. I pulled the car alongside the curb just before her house, being careful not to scuff the wheels, and left it in idle. First the foundation, then my mascara, and finally a quick brush of my eyebrow hairs, well, the few I had remaining, and tucked my hair into place. I felt that lipstick wasn't really needed today. There, presentable. Kind of. I spoke to myself in the rearview mirror and flicked a few eye brushes back and forth so that they were equally placed on makeup. I maneuvered the car onto the drive and slowly finished alongside Jenny's house. It was a standard terrace house on a normal residential street in what looked like a normal neighborhood. What on earth were you up to, Andrew? I spoke to myself again before reaching down to unleash the seatbelt from around me and put the car park into stop. I got out into the fresh spring air and faced the house. I noticed the curtains twitch in the front room, window of the house next door. So they were a nosy neighbourhood. I wondered if it was worth asking the street what they knew about Andrew. Was there anything different about him? Peculiar, perhaps? Changing behaviour? Maybe they had noticed something different that Jenny hadn't. I walked around the other side of the car, snatched my handbag from the passenger seat, and quietly shut the door. Following the path alongside their driveway, I could smell the alluring aroma of fresh baking, getting stronger and stronger the closer I reached their front door. A modern, brushed steel door handle ran from the top to the bottom. I gently pushed the button of the video doorbell, trying to stand as confidently as I could, but this tended to be when I was at my most fidgety. I tried to take in as many pieces of information and details surrounding me as I could. Missing the slightest thing could make the world of difference in a case like this. It took a few moments, the sound of voices and a chattering inside before the door slowly opened. A petite lady with blonde hair, pretty blue eyes, and a welcoming smile quietly said my name. Esmeralda King? Yes, that's me, I replied and stepped closer towards her. She appeared to look beyond me at the house opposite, then calmly both sides up and down the street. It was as if she was checking to see if anyone had noticed me arrive and was watching the house. Sorry, I'm Jenny. Nice to meet you. Please do come in. She proceeded to open the door wider to let me in and stood patiently behind whilst I stepped inside. I felt a light hand on my bag usher me into the house, and she did the same again. Looked at both the neighbouring houses and across the road. She seemed to be on edge. The cutest little girl came running up to greet me. Hello, she said in a miniature voice, looking up, her legs both together and her hands behind her back. Hello, and what's your name? I bent down to see her. Primrose, but Mummy calls me Prim. She smiled so innocently. What a pretty name for a pretty little lady. I stood smiling at her cute features. She was a spitting image of her mother. She tilted her head to one side and began fiddling with a pink bracelet around her small wrist. Primrose looked like she was thinking tentatively, but she didn't say a single word. What was going on in her tiny little mind? What effect would losing her father have on her at such a young age? Prim, sweetheart, why don't you go to your playroom for a few minutes? Mummy wants to talk to her friend. Jenny nodded in the direction of the small room just off the hallway, prompting Primrose to make herself scarce. There was a pause, followed by an awkward silence for a few moments. The hallway was in a standoff, no one saying anything or moving. I looked at Jenny, then at Primrose, expecting something to happen. Okay. Primrose smiled again cheekily and made her way into the room containing a variety of toys as told. Sorry, Esmeralda, she can be a little, what do you call it, demanding? Jenny pulled a po-faced look, but soon it changed to a laugh. I do love her to bits. If it wasn't for her, I turned to Jenny as she seemingly paused what she was saying. I'm so sorry for your loss. It must have been terrible. I couldn't possibly imagine. My words dissolved as Jenny walked me through the narrow hallway of their home and into the kitchen. She pulled out one of three high stools aligned in front of the modern kitchen's breakfast bar. She starts school soon, so hopefully she'll make some friends real soon. A bit of structure in our lives would be great. Please take a seat, Esmeralda. Tea, coffee, or something else, perhaps? She asked. Lovely, yes, please. White coffee with sugar would be great. Thank you. I swung my bag over the back of the chair and perched on the seat. Jenny walked round to the kettle, filling it with water from the kitchen sink, and cleared her throat before placing it on the side to boil. I had a second inclination to take in everything from within Andrew's former house. I could feel my brain whirring as it processed every minute detail, storing it in my memory like a library. The placement of their furniture, their belongings, any pictures or letters, just anything that would help me. I had no idea what Andrew had done for a job, what they had been like as a family or their background, but their home seemed loving. I was sat in a neat and tidy modern with a hint of rustic-looking kitchen. Dark blue wooden doors, copper handles, and accessories. Outside of the small window opposite, the breakfast bar was a narrow fenced garden parallel to all other rows of gardens in the street. There was little room for privacy in this housing estate. Everyone overlooked everyone else. It was something was happening here in this house. It wouldn't have been easy to keep it a secret. Jenny stirred both mugs and passed me the one closest to her. My cake should be out in 10 minutes. Would you like some? I never used to bake before, but since Andrew passed, it's kept my mind busy, you know? She pointed to the wall oven. Although the smell was wonderful and extremely tempting, I declined. A very strange habit of mine, but if I hadn't seen it being made and I wasn't confident of the ingredients, then I wouldn't eat it. Shops and restaurants were slightly different. They didn't necessarily have a reason or a want to kill me. I'm sure Jenny didn't either, but I wasn't about to break the habit of a lifetime. So, Esmeralda, she pulled up the seat next to me, coffee in hand, and spun the bar stool round to face me. Please call me Esme, I quickly interjected. Esme, I'm finding things a bit hard to deal with at the moment, but I will try to do my best to answer your questions as well as I can. It all seems so unreal. If you had told me this, that you were going to happen a few months ago, I would never have believed you. She sat with a pained expression, looking straight at me. I know this must be so hard for you. I'm sorry if the questions are difficult to answer, but just do the best you can, and I'm sure that we'll be able to get to the bottom of this for you. I wanted to reach out a hand, as a friend would, but I sat still, showing her the smallest of reassuring smiles. Let's start this right from the beginning, shall we? When was the first time you noticed anything strange, unusual, or out of character with Andrew? I opened my notebook to the first page and held my pen poised for her answer. Jenny looked out of the window, trying to recall the past few weeks. It was his mother's passing, she began. Can I ask what was wrong with her? Yes, Huntington's disease. When I first met her, she didn't seem to be too affected by it, but as the years passed, she became worse. More recently, her health took a turn. Her involuntary limb and muscle movements became more severe, jerky, and pronounced. She became clumsy and forgetful. The disease really took a hold when she had problems speaking, swallowing, and even breathing. Andrew's mother and father were both very close, but I don't think they were prepared for losing her. Jenny's hands appeared to be shaking. I think that is what pushed Andrew's father towards his dedication in that field. It was like he had a purpose. He organized multiple charitable events in her honor. I think he thought that he could make a difference, to cure her somehow. She sunk back into her chair. I believe they had a daughter, too. I think she carried the disease, but she had juvenile Huntington's disease, which killed her at a much younger age. I used to ask a few questions, but no one ever spoke about it, or her, so I gave up asking. I'm sorry, what field was Andrew's father in? I asked. Oh, medical research. Sorry, I should have explained that. He's a very clever man, always giving so much to charity. He's written papers, taught at several educational institutions, and given a lot back to the cause. Jenny's face turned to sorrowful, to a look of gratitude. Medical research, you say? I wasn't looking at Jenny while scribbling notes. Yes, that's right. What type? Do you know who he worked for? I'm afraid not. You'd have to ask him that, Jenny confirmed. Did Andrew follow his father's footsteps? I was intrigued as to where this was leading and what its link was with the research. What did Andrew do as a career? Oh, no, no, not at all. Nicholas did encourage him to go to science. Andrew was very talented in this area too, but he was close to pursue a career in accountancy instead, working in a finance team for a London-based firm. The money was much better, Jenny exclaimed. I think the rest of his family are heavily medical focused, though. And did he have any other family members, brothers or sisters, perhaps? I asked. Anything that could help me build up a picture of his life. Yes, he has an older sister, Elena, but she lives in Australia, and an older brother, Alex. They haven't spoken in years. Jenny paused as Primrose came running in. Mummy, Mummy, my doll's broken. Look. She held up a rather sorry-looking doll with a broken arm, tears in her eyes. It's okay, Prim. Jenny hugged her as she held onto her waist, upset with what had happened. We can fix that, or I tell you what, if we go to play with our other toys in your room for just a few minutes longer, while we finish up our conversation, we'll go shopping tomorrow for your birthday and you can choose a new doll. Primrose looked up quickly to her mother's face with excitement for the first time I'd seen her take look happy since I'd arrived. Really? She asked. Of course. We can have a mummy-daughter day. Jenny gave her a squeeze before releasing her to run back to the playroom. I'm sorry. I'll leave you both to carry on your day. But before I do, I just have a few more questions. I hope that's okay. I pushed. Sure. Jenny got to her feet, pushing the stool back in. Anything, if it helps figure out what the hell happened. She placed the mugs in the sink and turned around to face me, her arms resting on the worktop. When did Andrew change? I looked at her, waiting for her response. As soon as he came back from the hospital after his mother died. I know he was upset, but he was inconsolable. He seemed a different person, unable to concentrate, reserved. He wouldn't eat and constantly woke from nightmares. At this point, Jenny became upset. I couldn't say or do anything that made him any better. Did he say anything to you? Anything at all? No, nothing. Each time I asked if he wanted to talk or suggested to see a grievance counsellor, he told me not to be so ridiculous, as if it wouldn't make the blindest bit of difference. No one would. He kept saying over and over again that he wasn't the person he thought he was anymore. Jenny shook her head in disbelief. What about work? Do you speak or do you know any of his former colleagues, friends, or other family members? Did they notice anything strange? I asked. No. He was quite reserved once we had Prim. He spent less time with his friends. He was close to his manager, but even that was strange, she added. What do you mean? He left for work the same time every day. But on the day after he jumped, his manager called and said Andrew had sent him an email thanking him for all his support and understanding following his mother's death, but that he wouldn't be in again. But a small single tear ran down her face. But what? I prompted. He hadn't been in since she died. Jenny wiped her face. I looked at her with a confused expression. It took me weeks to figure out where on earth he was going every day. If he wasn't going to work, then where? When Cordelia called his phone and said that he'd been following her, I put two and two together and came up with some elaborate guesses as to why he was there. Was he having an affair? Did he have a strange tendency towards children? Was it something I'd done? She raised her arms and shrugged her shoulders. That's what I'm trying to find out for you, Jenny. I made a few more notes. Did you say he had his mobile phone? I understand he left it behind when he... I stopped myself from saying those painful words. I do, and his laptop, but I can't get into them, as I don't know the password. I've tried, but it's not right. She walked towards the hallway and reached into his drawer units beneath the stairs, pulling Andrew's belongings from it and placing them in front of me. Thank you, Jenny. I'll see what I can find out. I looked into her pained, tearful eyes. The police didn't seem interested, she shrugged. Cordelia insisted that she wasn't having an affair and that he'd been behaving peculiarly, following her and her daughter around. Why was he so fascinated with them when he had his own daughter? I don't know who they are, and I don't see the connection. It's unfortunate, Jenny. The police won't be able to get involved if there isn't any foul play, but there are a lot of strange events surrounding his death, so hopefully I can find out as many answers as I can for you. I slid the laptop and mobile phone onto my handbag, along with a notebook and pen. Oh, one last thing. You said he had a sister and a brother. You don't happen to have a family photograph, do you? Or contact details for them, or know where they live? Um, she stood for a moment, contemplating if she had this. There is one family photograph that was on his mother's order of service, and that is. Jenny flicked through a small pile of papers next to the stack of cookery books. Ah, here it is. She handed it to me. Sure enough, there was a beautiful picture of his mother on the front page, followed by a group photograph of their family inside, and finally a picture of her and Nicholas on the last page. That'll do perfectly, thank you. Do you mind if I take a picture of this, please? I said, reaching for my phone. And Andrew's father, does he live nearby? I asked. How was their relationship before you last saw him? Yes, he lives about a 10-minute drive from here. She took a pen and wrote down his address on the back of the order of service and slid it straight back to me. I know he was your husband, Jenny, but what can you tell me about Andrew? Was he ever secretive about anything? Was he in any debt? Did he gamble or have anything you think he would hide? I'm not alluding to anything. It's just sometimes people tend to end their lives because they think there is no way out. They feel alone, or perhaps they have no one to turn to. I tried to make my questions as sensitive as I possibly could. I understand what you're saying, Esme, but if you know Andrew, you would honestly be able to say that he was the kindest, gentlest, funniest man you would have ever met. He would have done anything for you. He wasn't a big drinker. He was quite an honest man and told me everything. Unless I had him so wrong and didn't know him at all, then I would be mistaken. This is why it's such a shock and so out of character. I don't even understand why he didn't tell me that he was following Cordelia. Thank you. I think that's all I need for now. You have been so helpful, but I will be sure to reach out if I was rudely interrupted when my phone started vibrating in my hand. It was on silent, but the sound of it moving around was distracting me. I clicked the side to pause it, but it kept recalling over and over again. First Hunter, then Hugo, then Hunter again. I apologized to Cordelia for being so rude to her, but I genuinely thought they were having an affair, Jenny tried to explain. I'm sure she understands. It's a very difficult time for you. My phone went again and again, stopping me from finishing my sentence mid-flow. I'll let you get that. She nodded towards it. It's okay. I'll leave you in peace and I'll call them back in the car. I'm sure it isn't urgent. I got to my feet, picking up my full handbag, and thanked Jenny for her time. I reassured her that I would keep working on finding the answers for her, even though she hadn't really given me any more information than I already knew from Cordelia. Making my way back to the car, I couldn't help but notice 10 missed calls in the space of a few short seconds. Without peering erratic, I waved at Jenny and waited for her hand back to the house, but she had already closed the door behind me. I leapt into the car, scrolling through all the missed calls before working out which one to call back first. But the volume of calls only meant one thing. Something was happening at Cinco Chicas. Despite me telling Jenny that I was sure it wasn't anything urgent, I suddenly felt as though it was. I turned to a state of panic, reeling through the messages and missed calls. A strange message from Casey about half an hour ago saying, "Don't come to the club, they're here for," and nothing else. Hunter then leaving me a voicemail. "Esme, call me urgently. She's in a bad way."